Hello lovely people, this is Alexandra here. So another video on my channel, and this is a similar video to the one I made in my featured video on the channel about me in terms of the spiritual business, spiritual counseling, mentoring, life coaching, etc. Just that this video is me, Alexandra, as a dog person, so I will speak about where I come from, my background, and in experiences with dogs and dog training, both as a volunteer in shelters and as a professional in different roles. So, where it all began, when I was like every kid pretty much back in Germany in a village near Karlsruhe in southern Germany. So, I wanted a dog. My family at that time, we were building a house, and so it was clear, okay, we'd have our own house and garden, we could build a kennel, we could have all this kind of space, and a dog was now within reach. So we went to the local shelter, and my parents picked out a flat-coated retriever named Blackie to be our family dog. So fast forward a few years into that, Blackie unfortunately passed away, and on that same night he passed, my parents went to the horseback riding stable where I was enrolled and practicing riding, had riding lessons. They had a puppy, a mixture between giant Schnauzer and working like German Shepherd. And there was two puppies still left from the whole litter, and I'd been in contact with the litter, and these were extremely outgoing, friendly puppies, very confident puppies as well. So my parents went there and took a puppy, bought a puppy, brought it home, and I remember my father saying, it was a summer evening, it was very hot. I was sitting on the patio. My father brought me this puppy on his arms and said, "This is yours now." So I was 12 years old at the time. So you make sure right now you start engaging with it, bonding with it, training with it. So it'll become your dog. Otherwise, it'll be like Blackie. It'll be focused all on your mother, and you. Blackie was actually very aggressive towards me. I don't think he really liked me. He saw me as competition, so you could say he was resource guarding my mother a lot. But anyway, I bonded with Hasso, that little guy, and Hasso was such a star dog. Like, I think all of us dog people have this one dog in their lives that's been really influential and an amazing match. Some call it soul dog, some call it just a perfectly aligned dog, some call it the dogs of their dreams or whatever. Hasso was that for me for sure, and I did a lot, like spent many hours a day training him, walking him, exploring everywhere with him, and taking him to the local dog sports club, which back then in the village was a Rottweiler club. And it was very interesting to get at that time, being 12 years old only really, to get into training. And all I needed to do was, because Hasso brought the genetics, he was a working line dog, giant Schnauzer and working line Shepherd, molded into one, beautiful temperament, very stable, but also very energetic and eager to work, eager to please. And he was a star. He at the time we called Schutzhund, which is now IPG, which has in between been IPO. We called it Schutzhund training. We didn't even say Schutzhund training. We had these exams, Sheha 1, Sheha 2, Sheha 3, which meant IPO levels 1 to 3. So that was what the club was focusing on, and you could come train with any dog that could fit the bill, would jump the hurdles, do the tracking, do the bite work, which was really all play-based that time of age. It's been reformed, so don't get me wrong, it's not that it always been that way, that bite sports has always been play-based and positive only, and no, nothing could be further from the truth. It was very brutal sports. Read Konrad's book, Colonel Konrad Most, about dog training. Read it, do yourself a favor, because Zach George is very right in his documentation of bite sport history. It comes from Germany, and Konrad Most's book will help you understand the origins of that, based totally in police dog work, because Most himself, Colonel Most, was a police dog and military dog trainer in the time of the First and Second World War, and he is an authority in the field. And his methods that he features in his books were quite brutal to a point, but also he featured methods that were, downright utterly and totally, undisputedly abusive. Like, you'd be shocked if you read the book. You will be. You can comment, please. If you read the book, comment below what your thoughts were. But in the time I was in the clubs in the late 80s and 90s, things had already mellowed down a lot. Actually, the VDH, the equivalent of the AKC in America, had issued new regulations that they would only pass dogs, the SHEA 1, 2, 3, so the Schutzhund, the IPO trials, and also the even the BH, the companion dog trial, if you will, if that correctly translates like this. The dog needed to, and I quote the best of my ability to remember from back then what the judges were saying or telling us, the dog had to work enthusiastically and joyfully. They did not want to see any more like dogs with tails between their legs, tails straight down, which is a very bad sign. Your dog is walking to heel and it's like, you know, in that fear state, which has been brought about by heavy compulsions, heavy-handed. Believe you me, there were leather leashes whacked down on dogs' faces. There was in tracking even some people who still, before these new rules came into play, still could be seen using a prong collar to slam that dog on the prong collar to make it put its nose down on the track. Wow, right? Or prongs were used to force a fetch, like the apport over a hurdle and different hurdles, different obstacles, and directly without an obstacle, just throw the block away. The dog has to retrieve and bring right away to front, hand it to you without chewing on it preferably, and then move to heel position upon request. So yeah, very brutal things. When I was there, thankfully that began to change, and I believe today there's many clubs who, even police dog training, like police dog training academies, if I understand that correctly, in some regions of the US, where counties where dogs are trained without using force. So that's of course amazing. Back then we were a long way from that. So that's my background. So when people in the club saw that I was with Hasso, was having successes, Hasso never failed me. He wasn't the best at bite work because he lacked a certain amount of courage, but he always pulled through for me. So we did Schutzhund, IPG, IPO level 3 multiple time competitions and scored very well. We came right between the lead trainer with his Rottweiler and the inevitable Malinois handler, who was my Gerhard, my dear friend and mentor back then. They always scored higher, but Hasso was third, so it was very pleasing in these competitions. We also did competitions with other clubs and more regionally based competitions of various clubs would come together, and Hasso was really amazing. But through that performance of Hasso, really due to him rather than me, breeders started offering me dogs to train for money, and it was my first job as a teenager. I was maybe 15 years old when I started to get active in that. So I took one German Shepherd at a time to live with me in one of our kennels and learn with me. I took Hasso and the dog on the bicycle, next to the bicycle. We went to the club and they pretty much pulled me all the way there on a bicycle. These dogs had endless energy. Oh my God. So we were there at the club, they would work, and then we would ride home, and often in winter or questionable safety precautions taken on my little bicycle. But yeah, thankfully these dogs also all pulled through and went through the tests, through the exams with me and for me, and so that was very successful. I also did put them through the BH or Begleithundprüfung, which is the canine good citizenship. I don't know if it's relatable or if it's still called a Begleithundprüfung. No countries of the world they do not know that. But anyway, it's an exam where basically there's an obedience part in the field and there's a practice part in public settings where you have people milling about, dogs milling about, bicycles, cars, traffic around, everything going on that would go on in a normal neighborhood or busy bustling city. And the dog had to still perform well, be balanced, not be fearful of noises, not be fearful of people, not be attacking obviously any of the people that were passing close by. So there's a temperament testing function in this exam. So all the dogs passed that. Another aspect we did was the endurance exam, which is 20 kilometers trotting next to a bicycle back at the time. And the judges would take a group of us, would be maybe 20, so you'd see this whole huge troop of bicycle riders with their dogs trotting next to them on a loose leash. So that was the only precondition. Dog had to make it, you had to make it, and an approximate heel position needed to be maintained next to the bicycle so the dog wouldn't be pulling you. I also trained conformation for German Shepherds specifically, which is a very special, I would say, unique way of showing dogs, because it's not only showing dogs where you just have this I'm not wanting to look down on any professional dog presenter in showing, of course not. What I mean is a German Shepherd requires one handler to handle the dog in the ring and one person to be outside of the ring getting the dog's attention, so the dog would show the full length of their gait, because German Shepherds, the way they're built, their strides are unparalleled in the dog world, I believe, in their length. So you would have to run really, really fast, at least me with my little legs, to make the German Shepherd show its entire wide width of stride, so to speak, in the trot. And the other person who was a breeder usually, would run around the ring and just get the dog's attention, shouting, screaming, squeaking a squeaky toy, literally. It is quite comical sometimes. And then you'd have to do the stacking, which is for the German Shepherd a certain way to get the hind legs positioned and so forth. So all it was lots of fun and successful. And at the same time, I was active as a volunteer in local shelters, various ones even. Just every free minute I had, I was either working my own dogs, walking them, doing bicycle excursions with them, or going to the shelter and doing the same with the dogs there, and also training them, and coming across some pretty gnarly cases of dogs that were afraid, fear biters, all the way to full out aggression, which is, you'd say generally 95% of dogs that people generally say is aggressive is fear-based aggression. Is reactivity is just such a weird term nowadays. I don't know. For me, it's fear-based aggression. It's what it is. So it's not the dog wants to hurt someone. It's just they're afraid. They're spooked. Anyways, but there were also cases of real aggression, and I remember having some, I believe, fairly close calls. And I attribute me being here. I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, those were like 60 kilo Rottweilers, those were 40 to 50 kilo massive German Shepherds turning on me, like literally. I remember having a Rottweiler's jaw around my head, the back of my head. The dog had mounted me, I was at that point on the ground. Dog was mounting, growling and biting, like mousing the back of my head. And I attribute me to not having been ever severely bitten, to me being very diplomatic and just very in a sweet little baby voice, sweet talking to the dog. Oh, my goodness, was thinking I'm pretty much approaching the end of my life here. So yeah, I'm surprised that my parents and the owners of the shelters were just so, willing to take risks and trust the process. But I also had mentors there, other volunteers who were very experienced and took me under their wing, teaching me how to deal with these dogs, not in terms of putting pressure on them, but more coexisting in a way that the dog would not feel the motivation to turn on me. Because if you avoid, like with people, if you avoid conflict, like mind your own business, the dog comes at you, it's like, dude, whatever, just keep on walking, you don't need to, do your sitna right now if you don't want to, because obviously the dog is physically superior to a 15-year-old teenager. So it always worked well. It taught me valuable lessons. So going forward, there was a lot happening in between the whole different careers, moving to Basel, Switzerland, and to Tenerife, and spending time on different Canary Islands, and moving to Portugal, spending time in different sections of the country, and Spain and so forth. So during that time I was dog sitting privately in people's homes, where I would go and spend time there and just look after their dog. I used to, from teenagehood onward, really do dog walking in the neighborhood, different regular dogs together with my mom or alone. I used to do the shelter work, And to this day, I also help neighbors and people in the local villages with their dogs, because people see me walking my big Estrella mountain dog, and here this is a very much a rare occurrence because people don't walk these big guardian breed dogs. They have them on their farm or with their flock, but because they're notoriously reactive, and yeah, it's just what it is. Let's face it. A part of them is very social and non-reactive, but also there's a part of them which just is notoriously reactive and has a propensity to go after cyclists, mountain bikers, motorcyclists, people, dogs, cats, everything. It's just a natural genetic inclination, and mine is like 12 out of 10 in that thing. Like, she really has a drive to be extra suspicious, and if in doubt, go after things quite aggressively. But she's what Cesar Millan would call a dominant, insecure dog, luckily, I believe, because I don't think we had people come on the land, right, with so intruders who no, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but encounter happened. It of course was not planned, but also thanks to me and the relationship I have with her and my training her, Maya did not barge through the personal space of the person. She invaded the hell out of their personal space, barked with her jaws clapping right in front of their stomach pretty much, but she did not take the extra steps to bite the person, which I believe had she been a Cane Corso or Rottweiler, things would have turned out a bit differently. So I yelled at that intruder, but then the intruder also, after having been apprehended on the land, my dog recalled to me. I was able to then grab and secure her. I gave a good shouting, and I gave the intruder a chance to retreat and go away, which is my goal. I don't need a dead body or mauled person on my land. If someone makes a mistake and consciously breaches that boundary, despite the warning sign that there's a dog, despite the gate, you know, they just have to a point, yeah, there needs to be a consequence, but the consequence of being cornered and teeth snapped at by a giant mastiff, I believe that taught the person a valuable lesson, and there was no need for me to take matters further, because in essence, especially out here in these very remote areas, it's a tricky thing to get police involved. Yes, we did on another occasion with someone, with our previous dog, when the Estrella wasn't there yet, which is why the Estrella was gotten. We'd had a burglary with just a very docile old German Shepherd in the house. In that instance, the police was informed, there was an investigation, there was then a suspect being found who paid damages in essence, so we were financially compensated. But you know, it's always a two-sided, there's two sides to the medal of this, calling the cops in an area where you live, and you probably be living several years more, because you don't want to make enemies as such, because everyone's so connected to the whole village they live in, to their families. They've been living there for ages, the family's been living there forever, so to aggravate, to like cause inconvenience to a integral part of that community, I feel I want to be careful, because I'm also aware that people get their dogs poisoned if they have serious conflict with others, and I don't ever want to be in the position where I lose my dogs in such a horrible way. You see, so there's this thing. So Maya, the Estrella, is a perfect guard dog for me, because she will viciously go defend the fence line, and if someone is found on the land, if someone has breached the boundary, she will apprehend, she will corner, and she'll make so much horrific noise that one of us will come running, because it's quite obvious then something has been occurring. But also she's in control, she's permitting me to grab her. And not all dogs are at this point of being riled up and being in this high state of hyper-arousal. Many dogs redirect and bite the owner, actually, if the owner then tries to grab them. So I know from that occasion Maya does not do that, and that's a blessing. But anyways, back to my story, because I wanted to, speak about where I come from in terms of dog training. So shelter work, there was a Schutzhund work, there was a training dogs for other trainers, there was a dog sitting, there was working for breeders. We had local Rottweiler breeders in the village itself, so I used to walk dogs for them, I used to do kennel cleaning for them, I used to do dog and house sitting for them. all that. And it was at times scary. The thing is with me, I was always afraid to a point, but somehow dogs are also not stupid. So an aggressive dog, like a male Rottweiler in the late juvenile period, early adulthood, is usually a quite confident dog. At least the German lines back then that I was in contact with were extremely confident and often aggressive, you know. So if you went head to head with such a dog, they often bit even their owners. And I personally witnessed that. This is not just me quoting statistics or quoting what Google says. This is actual personal experience. But I believe as the dogs were sensing, you know, there's someone who is not after going head to head, there's not someone after invading my personal space if I'm not ready to yet. Why do I need to aggress someone who's already like showing measures of de-escalation, like averting the gaze, speaking with high-pitched voice, like a puppy would. I read that somewhere back then, so I was doing that high-pitched voice thing, averting the gaze, body posture away from the dog, non-confrontation, so literally take the confrontational, like you facing the dog, take that away, and the dog will respond, or in my case, luckily for me, they always responded very, very positively and just walked off, and then one would continue the walk. Don't try it at home, and I'm not, you know, disclaimer, don't do what I do, what I did. This was very risky looking back now. But anyway, so I went from that through moving countries, moving careers. I did some work with rescue dogs, fostering dogs, and also, I must say, I mean, there's a big stigma out there of people, pet dog owners and working dog owners even, to like return a dog to a shelter or to rehome a dog that is not the perfect fit for the person. Sports dog people do that all the time, so it's a bit more normal there, but in the pet community is virtually unheard of. And I must say I did that myself. I did return a dog to a shelter in a way, 2 times, and I tell you why. So the first time is a retired hunting dog, a greyhound, had been used for hunting and had been used to living outside in an enclosure with many other dogs. So suddenly the rescue organization comes in, takes that dog out of there, says, oh, that poor dog was abused, having to live in these conditions and wasn't hygienic and was an animal neglect case, I believe, back in the day. And let's just plonk them into dog pet owner homes. And I back then was very inexperienced still with behavior modification in pet dogs. I was used to working dogs on the field and even to walking shelter dogs, but they lived in kennels. So back then there was no internet material available that said, okay, here's what you can do, or at least to my knowledge, I didn't know such a thing. I didn't know that there was resources that like impact crates, and they related crates is the only brand name that comes to mind. So if you look it up, I'm not necessarily behind all their policies, but if you look it up, you'll see they have specific high anxiety crates. And had I had access to a high anxiety crate, maybe it would have worked out with that dog. But what happened, that dog, I worked from home mostly, but sometimes I had to go shopping or go see a client for 1 or 2 hours. Even in that time, that dog would literally spray diarrhea everywhere, and if I try to confine it to a custom-built enclosure in a separate room to hopefully calm the dog down, be nice and cozy and stuff, that dog would rip that device, that crate apart and rip it open, and she'd injure herself so badly that be blood sprayed everywhere. And it was just getting to the point, you know what, this is not responsible dog ownership here. I can't, well, first of all, my insurance to restore my apartment where door frames had been ripped off and stuff once the dog did get out, they wouldn't have paid that to happen again and again. They paid once, but they made it very clear, look, if this keeps happening, it is on you. But the most important part from the dog lover perspective is you can't have the dog self-injure that way. The dog is bloody, it needs veterinary attention after that. and you can't, I don't want to pump it full with medication either. Back then I didn't know of CBD oil being allegedly working wonders in such cases. I had behaviorists at my house, I had medication given, I had the vet look at the case. It was, at the end I had to just throw my hands up and say, for the sake of the dog and my peace of mind, to the rescue organization, find a space where that dog is with other dogs, because evidently there's a extreme separation anxiety, and if there's only me as a person, as a relatable person, as a person of trust, this is just very bad for this particular dog. So they then rehome the dog to a space where it could be living outside like it used to all its years of its life before with other dogs. And just as a side note, to illustrate that I'm warning against the stigmatizing of people who feel the need, after much research and measures, to rehome a dog. Such a dog is a giant liability, to a point where if it kills itself, you'd have a permanent trauma, and you have a dead dog. And a dog biting itself, like was the instance as well, it can bleed out. I mean, it's horrible. It's one of these horrible cases where you'd have to make the decision for the best of the dog, you know. And to illustrate what can happen further is, so the dog gets taken back by the rescue, everything's documented, everything's fine, and I get a call by the police in the middle of the night, 3 a.m, I remember, and I was confronted with a police officer being very concerned. He says he's standing on a motorway in a totally different part of Switzerland where I lived at the time, saying I'd found my dog on the middle of the motorway. And I don't know if someone was injured, if there had been accident. He did not divulge that information. But I then informed him that apparently the rescue had failed to change the information on the chip database, because I was no longer the owner. So I gave him the data, the telephone numbers to call, and I never heard from them again. But this just goes to show, a retired greyhound hunting dog of any kind is not a pet. These are working dogs with an extremely high prey drive and a thirst for freedom that's quite big. So if such a dog escapes, goes after wildlife, they can be surviving because they'll kill livestock, right? It's very dangerous for the dog, who will get shot eventually by someone if it keeps doing that. So I would not do that again, or recommend it to anyone. They are amazing in the apartment, for instance, very nice, docile, very intelligent, easy to train as well, but you know. So that was one case. The other case was when there was just a threat for the smaller dog that had been the adopted dog, because a smaller dog would repeatedly aggravate the by then adult German Shepherd I also had, and the female on female clashes can be much worse than male on male clashes. Many of you out there, dog people, will attest to that. So it was ultimately a matter of concern for the safety of that dog to return her to the shelter. I know I'm not making myself popular out there by divulging that information, but I am in this channel and on my new private Facebook group, which is called Support Group for Dog Owners. You can find it by going to my Facebook profile, Alexandra Dittmann 31, and right there pinned on top you see the clickable link to the group. You can join, you get free support, free content, free discussion, whatever you want to speak about. So yeah, we can also speak about that hot topic, controversial topic. I want to be extremely transparent of where I stand, where I come from, because it can't be that, you know, frankly, I'm not earning any money with this dog stuff I'm doing now privately right now. Yeah, we are also having another business, my husband and me, and which is pretty much funding my passion of speaking about dogs. So I'm not under a compulsion to adhere to a certain philosophy, adhere to a certain dog training business and their philosophies because they sponsor me or they pay me. None of that, so anymore. I used to come to that in a minute. But I'm enjoying this freedom to be very transparent, and this channel and also Facebook support group is dedicated dog trainers are always welcome, but is not catering to dog trainers, it's catering to dog owners who have a difficult situation at home, are at their wits' end sometimes, and just, I agree with Robert Cabral on that not every dog is the best fit for every person, and we can't be, so blocking our views so much as to think that you get a dog and you have to stick with them for the whole 16 years of their lives. I really want to question that, that is the way forward in every single case, because I don't believe so. And I believe so it's not only for the dog but also for the person. We can't just be dog focused exclusively. We also have to look at the well-being of the person, which blends into our business. My husband is coaching people actually to succeed in life and to bring themselves out of different lower states of emotion and anxieties, and owning a difficult dog can very much contribute to that. Then also you probably aren't then the best fit for your dog in every single case. Ideally you'd be, but say you have a high drive Australian Shepherd or Belgian Malinois or Dutch Shepherd who'd much rather be herding sheep or cattle, and you can't give them that outlet. Instead you live in an apartment. Isn't it maybe, just maybe, if you limit it on your time, your resource, your energy, what you want to do, also your commitment, you might have kids, you will have other responsibilities in life probably, and the dog might not be your priority. If he is your priority, you can make it work. I'm positive, almost positive about that in most of the cases you can make it work. But say it's really not the utmost priority, but you still want a dog, isn't it then kinder to find a very good place for that dog, where that dog has a chance of a better life? I'm not saying put them into a kill shelter, and disclaimer, I would never say that and recommend that. And in the cases that I spoke about earlier, that I, myself, my own cases and other cases that I was involved in, of friends who had difficult experiences, dogs were never put into a shelter where they were about to be put down. Absolutely 100% not. So for instance, rescue organizations in Switzerland and now in Portugal, the new legislation, thankfully, they're not allowed to my knowledge to this day, to euthanize any dog. So the worst case that would happen to those particular dogs that I was dealing with or my friends were dealing with is they would go back to living in this open plan group run, where they were kept in the organization, not in kennels either, like alone in a very small kennel. They were at least kept in a group, or at least in a small group or bigger group of dogs they got along with great. So it wasn't like you condemning them to death by putting them in a shelter. And I'm appalled that in the US this is so often the case. So it just confirms my innate conviction that every case of dog owner team has to be looked at case by case. There is no one size fits all approach at all, I believe. And to really consult people the best way possible in terms of what's the best way to solve their challenges in living with their dog, one has to very carefully look at each case, which is why if you say you book a consultation with me, you're not going to get a pre-written script of what you ought to be doing or not doing. We have a conversation, and I will encourage you to submit video material of your dog in general, in different situations, interacting with you, not interacting with you, interacting with the environment, because I want to have a visual of how that dog is, how do they move, what's their body language, what's their vocals, what's their their signals, their facial expressions, eye signals, piloerection, like hair standing up or not in a case of arousal. For all these things, it's important to look at this and not just put a blanket approach on and say, yeah, your dog is chewing the wood. I put a prong on them and just yank at them and say, leave it. No, not really. So bottom line, I wanted to get back to my story. Sorry, I keep on digressing. So this is sorry for that being such a long video already. I just believe I want to say all I feel I want to say to build my own dog training social media presence or dog ownership, dog owner support social media presence. I want to be a complete open book. You know, you don't like it, whatever, it's fine. You're totally allowed to put a dislike on the video or put a gnarly comment if you want to. That's fine. But isn't it in this day and age where so much is done to get clicks, get views, get purchases? Isn't you know? I mean, I respect that to a point because there's businesses who only do the dog training. I'm fortunate to be in a position where this is not the case because, as I said, we have this other business as well, and I'm not a solitary earner in the family, so I'm not under pressure to just generate tons of money with dog training. If I never get a consultation paid for, is fine as well. I mean, I'm very happy to also pay forward what I've received from other trainers and friends over the years and give out this free advice, if you will, because I received so much for free on the internet and also from previous employers, really. And for mentors in the dog field that I do want to pay it forward, and I believe it will add value to some of you, hopefully as many as possible. Even if it doesn't, then at least you can say, oh, this woman is so horrible, I will never do what she's doing. That's already value added, because then at least you know what you don't want to be like. So back to my story. So where did I stop? Right, my own dog experience, dog ownership experience with fosters, experience with rescue organizations, dog walking, dog sitting, dog training, paid and volunteer in the shelters. It was sometimes paid if but on a donation basis, like, oh, that kid keeps coming here, chuck a few hundred mark by back then with German mark, Deutsche mark. Before the time of the euro, that was even ages ago. But yeah, I made some money with it, with dog walking and dog sitting, but mostly it was a training. So once you pass an exam, you got a decent chunk of money. And then the next dog would move into the kennel and you'd repeat the process, basically. So then over the years, I had the fortune to, as I said, to this day, meet amazing people who ask for advice with their dogs. Just recently, a few days ago, a local hunter and hunting dog breeder he's always running around these hills, quite elderly guy, but he's out there every day scaling that hill behind our house with his hunting dog puppies, conditioning them to go out and seek out rabbits and do all the things that a good hunting dog has to do, because here is his hunting land. We're literally surrounded by hunting zones, so we have hunting dogs yapping and running and screeching, including beagles, almost year round. Either they're hunting actively or they're being trained in the training field. It's up there in what do you see? Other direction. Here there's a hunting dog training field up in these woods. Or they're being trained just in the hills all around. So anyway, this hunting dog trainer has his 2 new puppies, 3 months old, and they're fairly skittish. So he sees me with Mikey the beagle walking and is saying, well, can I ask you to just put a bit of time, because I'm having trouble with these guys. They are too skittish, they're just barking at everything. Very typical at 3 months, and they're not wanting to approach other people or strange dogs. So of course, we worked for maybe half an hour together, and just gradually using Mikey, because Mikey is luckily very, very good with puppies. He comes on quite strong. He's an unneutered male, very dominant. The Cesar Milan would say a dominant, confident dog. So while Maya, my Mastiff, is dominant, insecure, Mikey is dominant, confident, very confident dog, most confident dog in the house. So he goes to these puppies and he helps them lose their fear, basically. What I did see, and I told the owner, leave it in Portuguese, because straight shooting, in this case, I found the best, because what I saw him doing is, and this old school ways is very much still around in Portugal as well, where you just yank a dog and make it squeal and try to get it to comply. And he did that with his puppies. They're literally squealing as he's dragging them along on their little chains towards me and my dog. And I said, just leave it. No, that's counterproductive. Just let them be. And we sit there. So Mikey and me literally sat in the grass for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and just gradually encourage these puppies, building the trust that nothing happened. We stayed in place. We didn't like barge forward. So we let the puppies come forward to us. And at the end of this little impromptu session, the puppies were rolling over, taking belly scratches from me and jumping, play bowing Mikey. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful also to see Mikey grow into himself, being a little bit of a mentor dog. I mean, I'm so proud of him because of his natural confidence. I feel he's perfect for this. He's not overly keen on other dogs, as in wanting to play all the time anymore. He used to be that as a younger dog, as a puppy. Now he's more, okay, I'm open. If dogs want to come to me to interact, I'm open, but also I'm fine if they go away again. So he doesn't bark at them anymore. He doesn't like try and chase and be overly rude and in play like he used to be when he was an adolescent dog. So yeah, now he's essentially helping me help these little puppies gain confidence, and I'm very happy with that. There's different cases like dogs being loose on the street. I'd go out with a slip lead, and sometimes people call me to help leash train the new livestock guardian dog they bought, because usually these dogs are not trained, and of course, especially for veterinary visits, you want them to at least be rudimentary leash trained, and I would go and do that. So yeah, this is what I still am doing in terms of hands-on experiences on dogs. But now let's come to and then in Portugal, I was fortunate to live in an area where there was a dog school and dog board and train kennel, with a lot of emphasis on French ring training, which is you could say, layman's terms, a bite sport, not that dissimilar to IPO, but even much more difficult, I would say. I would put French ring into the elite of bite sports, where you'd have mostly Belgian Malinois and Dutch Shepherds these days competing, even for working line German Shepherds. They compete as they can compete, but the requirements, like this trainer used to say to me, the working line German Shepherd is amazing, but think about the Malinois as being just that much more keen on the job, more keen to work, more easy to pick up things, more fast in general, and more intelligent. And I can agree with that. From what I've seen, these dogs are shockingly fast. And I was, as an assistant trainer there, to help train pet dogs, but also assist that trainer with his work, preparing his dogs for trials. He was very active in the competition field, both nationally, internationally, with his Malinois at the time. I don't think the school exists anymore, to be honest. I haven't seen online presence since, so whatever happened there, hope it went a good way. But anyways, back then when I was involved, I had this working line German Shepherd Cora, who I was raising. She became then a model dog for the obedience in the field, next to the trainer's dog, or the lead trainer's dog, because there was other trainers there, assistant trainers too. And it was an extremely educative time. But thinking back, what shocked me most is that I had no idea of anything outside of my Schutzhund style training, which was still heavily compulsion based. It had positive reinforcement elements, for example in tracking. I never ever used compulsion in tracking. Most of us didn't at that time, because the dog that wouldn't naturally track, and there are these because they, for example, they lack food drives, they're just not interested. Okay, we'd rehome these dogs as pet dogs, or I didn't, because mine always tracked the dogs I trained, the dogs I owned, without a problem. But dogs that wouldn't track would be rehomed, they wouldn't be forced to track. But so that was a positive reinforcement part. And in the obedience field, I'd say it's pretty balanced. In the bite stuff itself, it's mainly force free, because the dog should be you really don't want to bite work train a fear aggressive dog or dog that does not have prey drive. It's just a recipe for creating a reactive monster that would just, and I don't say this lightly, but this can produce very, very aggressive dogs that see everyone as a threat. So, not recommended. But back at the training field, I, for the first time, learned how to use food luring, that if food luring even existed, to teach basic positions like the sit, the down, the stand, the heel, the here, like come to front. And I learned all that there. And of course, I've been using it ever since. But it's shocking in a way if you think this old school method of learning exclusively from personal training, from in the field, from other trainers, from experienced handlers, that there wasn't even an inkling of luring, shaping, capturing ever explained or practiced. It was maybe used, so we probably captured a fair bit of behaviors in the home environment, like a dog sit, oh yeah, sits. So you'd just pair the action that happened freely offered by the dog with the verbal command, and the dog would learn that sits means sit down. But I think so to myself, I was like really extremely uneducated. Even then at that Portuguese training school, it was fun to learn all this new stuff, and I thought, well, wait a minute, we don't need all these heavy-handed methods or use leash pressure to yank dogs up into a sit or yank them down into a down. Yank, I don't mean, say that a bit flippantly, I don't mean like put heavy pain on the dog or anything. We just use the leash to enforce a position, to physically maneuver the dog in a position, like Konrad Most in his book about dog training is speaking about, so extremely similar methods still. So I learned these new methods, and I still hadn't caught on that there was an entire world of online-based dog training. I was completely oblivious of that, and explicitly the American/English, like English language world of online dog training, I had no idea it existed. There is also a German world which exists, which is extremely different to the English-speaking one, I must say. Any of you interested in that? Yeah, research it. I don't know what Google says about it. I can only say from personal experience, following a few German dog trainers, their dog training and use of tools is a very much regulated affair. Whereas in the US, it's a bit like the Wild West. Anyone can do anything, no certifications needed to call yourself a dog trainer and so forth. And neither did I have any certifications. I mean, I passed my trials, and it's all the evidence that the clients who were breeders at the time needed to see. So, we had these little booklets where the dogs' exams were listed, and you could make copies of that and show for reference. But back then, honestly, it wasn't even necessary because everyone knew everyone in the clubs. I was active in 3 clubs when I was actively, training for money, putting those dogs through trials. And we knew each other. So it was a reputation more than anything, word of mouth. Oh, that person knows what they're doing. We can use her to train your dog up for qualification, which then was needed for breeding, of course. That's how it worked. And later in Portugal, again, the proof was in the pudding for people. So trainers sees me perform as my German Shepherd's like, oh, okay, you're good. We can make a deal, be an assistant trainer. You help me with these pet dogs and stuff, and use your dog as demo dog, and that worked well. One thing I will say before I move on from that chapter of the school is by working personally with Belgian Malinois, I had a first-hand experience of how extremely fast these guys are. It's shocking, even to a person who grew up training German Shepherds in the clubs. And I mean, Rottweilers are much slower. They're very, very much slower, but even working like German Shepherds is nothing compared to a Malinois in terms of speed. I remember the trainer, oh my God, he had this, in the evenings when the clients were gone, we would stay on and we'd work his personal dogs, and that was where the fun began, because that's where he elicited my help to get these young dogs proficient in bite work. So he'd have that bite toy, the tuck toy, the big tuck toy. He would never allow me to, in the clubs early in Germany, I had done sleeve work. I'd been assistant decoy with a sleeve, which is very low risk in compared to the bite suit, because it's just, the sleeve is a very sturdy thing you wear in your arm, and it's just very, it's sturdy. You, even with a 60 kilo Rottweiler, I feel the pressure, but I wouldn't feel, there wouldn't ever be damage. But with a bite suit, the way they're designed, oh yeah, you can have bloody marks through that, and I saw that on the arms and legs of trainers there and decoys there at that club. So the chief trainer, he would never allow me to step foot into a bite suit, because he didn't want me to get injured. But he would allow me to use the big tuck toy to help train his own dog. So he would send me up to in Frenching, there's this 2 meter jump, like this sheer wall of wood that's 2 meter high, and you'd have a bit of a slope at the rear end, so the dog would jump up without a slope, initially with a slope to help, but then without a slope. Don't ask me how bad this is for joints of the dog, obviously extremely unhealthy, but back then I was not questioning this, was just going along. So, but when the dog would make the jump on a down pass, there was a slope, and I had to climb up that slope and hold the tuck toy over the slope to signal to the dog, look, here is your beloved tuck toy that you would do anything to get, right? And then the dog would jump, and I had to release that toy at the exact right moment and duck out of the way so the dog wouldn't knock me right off that obstacle. It's 2 meters high after all. And then we do the same on the long jumps, and on the 1 meter hurdle jump. It's just a scary stuff, because these guys, like 1 minute the trainer's holding the dog by the collar, revving him up to, and I was waving the dog, and the next minute the dog's already like half in my face, you know. These guys are so fast. And also the strength of the shaking is extreme. Like the trainer would get other people to, his mentor would come one day, and he'd bring this, what people call a pocket rocket, like a Cocker Spaniel size Belgian Malinois female, built like a pit bull. That thing was something else. But I thought, it's such a tiny thing. I mean, come on. But she's young, also 9 months old or something. She, you know. And the trainer said, I want you to experience what it's like to have a Malinois shaking, doing that kill shake that wolves do in the wild when they catch prey. They kill shake it to essentially kill it so they can eat it in peace. So I grab the tuck toy and engage the dog. The dog grabs the tuck toy and shakes that toy. And believe you me, I felt my bones rattling. I could not believe it. It's just outlandish, the strength in these dogs, despite them being so tiny in a way, you know. It's not a mastiff, it's just this this weirdly small thing, this small unit. And that left me very impressed. And also at the time I was doing martial arts almost every day of the week. We'd go and do trail runs, we'd go and do kickbox training, we do freestyle, we do wrestling, we do jiu-jitsu, we do Krav Maga. Very I was very dedicated to that practice. So I was in a physical very good shape, and yet that dog, I couldn't even maintain my spot on the ground. Like I planted, put the legs apart to get maximum leverage. That dog would just pull me. It's mind-boggling, you wouldn't believe it, how strong they are and how devastating their bite and their shake also is, all that strength. And the trainer, side note to that before I move on to finally cover my online dog training experience, that trainer always gave me the impression to be very tense in a way. So I would sometimes ask, here's the 4 or 5 Malinois he was handling and training and owning also himself. And these changed because he would go compete, he might sell a dog, he might acquire another, and so forth. So and all these Malinois were kept in the sports field. They were not sold as pets, distinctly not, and for very good reason. So I remember sometimes I'd ask all these friendly seeming younger dogs, well, can I pet them? Yeah, sure. But he would always keep a very tight grip on the collar and very strong awareness around the dog. And he would be I was thinking, but this man must have stiff shoulders, the way he's running around, like always so tense and so intense and so much focused on the dogs. But it became quickly apparent why that was the case, and that's because these dogs are so fast to react, and they believe very much. After generation and generations now being bred for the sports world, and the ones being preferred that show the propensity to chase and bite with essentially people, they'd be so quick to snap and just very quickly, you know, hit you somewhere. And trainers, owners can report that. Anyone who handled a Belgian Shepherd Malinois in a sports environment will know what I'm talking about. This is, yeah, this can be obviously a very big liability if it happens to another person, and then suddenly you got a lawsuit and so forth. So he was having the dogs insured, everything to hedge against it as best as he could. And the dogs never made the impression of being aggressive, but you'd also see that they were very much under his thumb. So they would very much keep eye contact with him. They'd allow people to touch them everywhere, because for these exams back, at least at that time, they had to have their privates even touched. They'd have to be touched all over by the judge to evaluate for temperament. But the joke is, this is not because the dogs were friendly, this is because the dogs were too afraid of what their master would do to them if they bit that vet or bit that judge. So they wouldn't bite, but these same dogs also did bite. Both himself severely attacked himself when he acquired them, some of them, and also bit previous owners, and would have not stopped at biting anyone. He says, look, I could give you this one, I could sell you this one as a personal protection dog, and you'd be quite safe from anyone else, but he'd probably also turn on you at the drop of a hat, you know, so it's not safe. And so he kept his dogs under very tight control, and I then asked the question, well, how come there's not more statistics and more news, like tragic bite incidents we see with Malinois, the way we see it with pit bulls? And it was just before the Malinois boom started. This was, how many years ago was this? Maybe 7-8 years ago now. And he said, well, this is because these dogs are owned by people like me and my colleagues, my mates here, so sports dogs, people who know what they're doing. These are not sold as pet dogs, and you couldn't even get a Malinois as a pet dog because breeders just simply would not sell them to a private person outside of a club. You'd have to be active in a club before you'd ever get your hands on a Malinois puppy. So there's that to consider for all the Malinois craze that's going out on there. Just a few months ago, Malinois killed a baby in the UK. There's been numerous attacks, been caught on camera, like the viral video of Malinois puppies, like 6-7 months old, I think. Malinois puppies attacking the cyclist, had his camera on, and was being snapped at and stuff. I don't think mauled as such, but another thing the trainer said is if his biggest fear is one of his dogs ever really biting a person, so ever having a situation where someone either attacks him or the dog interpreting something in public as an attack, because he says he's having like nightmares on the trying to visualizing how this would be like if one of his dogs who's learned how to bite, and that's an important point, who's learned how to grip with a full mouth, much like a police dog. And this ties into Zach George's documentary on police attack dogs. I can very well understand why this is a concerning matter. I also understand the perspective of officers feeling the need for an additional protection against attacks on their person with having a dog that will bite, but there's another conversation to be had. But anyway, the trainer, that very experienced Malinois trainer, breeder, handler, and sports person, competitor, was saying his biggest nightmare is having one of his dogs who learned how to bite someone in real life, because the dog learned how to bite with a full grip, so all the teeth are on the flesh, not just the front, so not just making scratch style marks, but full bite with the full crushing jaw pressure of a dog that is the German Shepherd head style, so it's a very big leverage that bites. It's not as strong as the bite of a Rottweiler, but it's getting there. And also he says that biting itself isn't the worst thing, because just a bite and hold will just make holes, and then hopefully if the victim stands still and the dog stands still, which is probably not going to happen because the dog is going to try and pull, or the victim's going to try and pull. But that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that dog starts to shake, do the kill shake that I had experienced with that little Malinois, that pocket rocket with the bite toy. He says such a kill shake done by a Malinois, they're very prone to doing those on bite objects, say, will tear flesh beyond repair, and someone could bleed out to death on a field, on the street, before help could even arrive. So he'd never ever want to get into such a situation with his dogs. This is a serious concern. I wish more people were aware of that. I wish everyone wanting to get a Belgian Malinois or Dutch Shepherd, very related breed, would go to a training field and say that they wish to acquire such a dog, and could they please hang out, watch a training, and maybe be given the chance I was given in take a tug toy and have the dog just play with you. Believe me, play with a Malinois is so much more than any dog owner would ever want to have on their hands, because also a misplaced bite, a pure accident, and you have an injury. It's not a little beagle that just nips you and maybe you have a blue mark here, or you have your skin scratched. You have a bite. I mean, even my working line German Shepherd, as a young dog, accidentally bit my hand instead of a stick, and I had a deep puncture wound. I was bleeding profusely standing in the middle of the forest as a complete accident, and she is nowhere near as fast as a Malinois would be. So just heed my words if you want to get a Malinois, Belgian Shepherd or Dutch Shepherd, and thank me later. Apart from that, so I don't want to come across as snobby or anything. I know many people don't have that experience, that hands-on experience. They see the flashy online videos and ignore people's warnings. I mean, you know, people hear what they want to hear, and I've been consulting people, and my bosses, my respective employers, even other trainers, colleagues, the moderators that I was working with, previous employment, we used to all just try and preach, warn people, don't get such a dog, or don't get a Cane Corso as well, which is the other big fashion breed. It's even more deadly, because a Cane Corso, being a Mastiff, is like 4 or 5 times heavier than a Malinois. So such a thing attacks you, yeah, good luck. Even with just one dog involved. If there's another dog involved, I don't know who would walk away from that easily. Yeah, but anyway, so this leads me to the online part of my dog training journey. And again, apologies for the video being ages long. It's just, I just want to cover it all in one video rather than keep on talking different snippets about different stages of my dog experience. I feel the obligation, because I am offering consulting. I have a website, Zen Canine Consultations, which you can find on the description of my channel here. I also have it on my Facebook, Alexandra Dittmann 31. You can see all the information there. Everything is linked. My support group, which is called Support Group for Dog Owners, is linked there as well. So please feel free to join, start conversations, post whatever you want to post. No topic is off limits really in the dog world. To me, in this group, this is a support group open to everything, everyone. But anyway, so fast forward, getting my Cora, working with Cora in the dog school. We then moved to a different part of the country, so I lost touch with that particular dog school and the Malinois world of Malinois training as such. Then I acquired Maya, my Australian mountain dog, who's snoozing right next to me here. She's now 4 years old, and what happened even before I acquired her, so I acquired her because we had a house break-in, like mentioned before, because I needed a guard dog that would stand its ground, it would not retreat, and would not also not bark, because a German Shepherd is such a docile little thing. She just never barked really. You know, if you told, she would bark on command, but that wasn't the same as someone coming to the house, testing the waters, and suddenly the dog's just docilely looking at you. Then of course in that case, that did not discourage the burglar very much. And so I needed a dog that would function better as a natural guardian. There also was, we lived so far off the beaten track, high up in the woods, literally wolves killing sheep behind our house. It was that rural. There was a wolf pack around. There was wild boar, fox on the land. There was no quick way to get anywhere. It's very, very remote. So I needed a guard dog for my peace of mind that would also sleep in the bedroom, because after this break-in, of course, any of you would happen that before, is very traumatic. You have problems feeling safe after in your own home. So I wanted a dog to sleep in my bedroom with me, who would not only sound a good alarm, but also have a good size, have a good natural intimidation factor, and raise hell, at least verbally, to hopefully discourage an intruder, but also if push came to shove, would not stand down easily and just turn tail and run off, as my German Shepherd frankly would have done. She was just a sensitive little thing. So I needed something else. Went to an Estrela breeder, and he assured me that the litter from this line, the mother of the dog was his own family guardian, and he says you don't need training. And also I didn't have the opportunity. There was no training club back there, so this is why pointing out this remotely. So I said I need a dog whom I don't need to train to be territorially aggressive, because I can't have another break-in happening. This is not good for my mental health. So he assured me this dog from this line will defend you with their life. And I thought, it sounds all like so poetic and stuff. He's probably exaggerating. And he totally wasn't. He totally wasn't. Maya is really like that. And we had this incident where someone was on the land. I just explained that earlier in the video. There was another incident where someone wanted to come on the land, because this had been a property where a break-in attempt had happened before. So one day there's this drunk guy who starts shouting at me out of his car and stuff, and trying to alluding that he would come on the land and do damage, but also very aggressively shouting at me. So Maya was on my leash, and without me even saying anything, she just charged, hit the end of that leash, dragged me forward. I had big trouble holding her back actually, but the guy was in the car, and she pulled me closer and closer to his open window, and he just sped off, as evidently seeing the light on that is not a good idea to challenge this dog. And it really isn't. I mean, last 2 years here where we've been living is again very remote, but people walking past, we can cross past people, we can cross past most dogs really, who Maya knows and trusts they won't bite her, but she is extremely reactive, so that's always lurking underneath the surface. She only had two reactions as such where she'd actively bark at someone. One was a woman who was so timid around dogs, she would just walk like this, and for Maya of course we're very suspicious, but also we have plenty of space there to get a bit out of the way, so she'd just do a few barks and we'd say hi and keep walking. The other instance, someone jumps out of a van and comes running at me, and Maya would go at them, but again I always have control. I have her double leash, double collared, just in case, because she's a mastiff, and if she feels stressed or triggered, she'll go for something. So I had her in heel position, kept her there, and the gentleman was really just having an emergency he needed help with. His hunting dog had gotten lost, and I was able to unite him back with his hunting dog. Very gratifying. But the first meeting went like this, so Maya thinking, there's someone here trying to rob us or something. But apart from that, she's been amazing. She's come such a long way. But around the time I got Maya, and even before I got Maya, and maybe the reason why I got Maya as a breed, an Estrela, a flock guardian, and not a German Shepherd, not a Rottweiler, and not anything else, was because I found Will Atherton. You can look him up. Will Atherton, dog trainer now, got millions of people following on his different channels. Back then he had a show called the Fenrir Canine Show, where he talked about mastiffs and these natural guard dogs, natural guardian breeds, and his own affinity experiences with them, that you don't need the training. They are very loving and stable around the family, the circle of loved ones, but they will absolutely dig their heels in if a situation happens. And I thought, this is what I want. So we got Maya, and then I listened to him some more, and I kept binging all the material I could find on his channel. And then there was a video that said to raise Maya the best way possible. And then there was a video that said we're hiring, and I thought, let's just pounce at that, because at the time there was COVID lockdowns happening. We literally couldn't even move house. That was even forbidden. That was just, everything was frozen, and I had left a previous job because also because of that crisis of being employers also being short on finances and budget and stuff. So I was open for that opportunity, and I started writing a test script for him. I think he still has it online. It's Fenrir Canine Show or Fenrir Canine Training. It's called the five amazing secrets of the amazing Rottweiler or something like that. He said, write me that video script, see what you can do. And I spent half a day in researching and writing that thing. But then I was hired, and it was a very, very nice experience. I worked for him on different projects, about 2 years maybe. Ghostwriter for the book he has. Look up Will Aston on Amazon, you see the book. So we written that book together pretty much. I was the writer. I'm just mentioned, if you look into the book, in the acknowledgements at the very end. But as a ghostwriter, you don't take the credit as such while you're writing something. But nevertheless, it's good also to say that, because people want to see what's been going on. It's a good book. It's an amazing book. Everyone should get that book. It's focusing on puppy training, but also on animal behavior, because Will Aston is a certified animal behaviorist from the UK. And is very good in his approach. I would say pretty unique approach, focusing on the relationship, the dog-human relationship, and not so much on the obedience factor. So he's not that flashy dog trainer walking through malls with the dogs looking up at him, attention healing all the time. He's not that. He's more the guy who just take a dog that people want to put down because it's so aggressive, reactive, whatnot, puts in a few sessions, and the dog doesn't get put down. So his slogan, and I very much work by that slogan to this day, I must say, is to keep, the goal being to keep dogs out of shelters and off of euthanasia tables. Everyone can get behind such a slogan. I still can to this day, right? I then went on to work for Garrett Wing, and I freelanced in this, so I wasn't really employed or something. I did other work on the side, and so I ended up working for Garrett Wing after that, and that was a big aha moment for me, because I had thought, I learned how to, in this dog school, how to do food luring and stuff. But for Garrett Wing, I mean, you just really should get his Obedience 101 course, which is completely force free. So again, everyone can stand behind that. There's other courses too. There's the Unleashed e-collar course, which is brilliant. I don't, at this time in my career and life, I don't recommend e-collar training for just every dog and every handler, every dog owner team at all. Really, I would only recommend in exceptions, but I know from personal experience there are situations, there are life circumstances where you pretty much left without much choice but to recall train with e-collar if you want to exercise your dog. Maybe you don't have fencing because of various reasons, either money, or local legislation, you're not allowed to build fences. What do you do? How do you work out your dog? Maybe it's also a reactive dog like what I had. Then you're really in a bind, right? So there are situations where e-collar training is, in my opinion, is just your best bet if you don't have other options at all. I mean, explore all the other options, like renting out a field to let your dog run maybe 5 days a week or something if you can't afford it. If there isn't such an option, just moving is easier said than done, right? Building fences is sometimes easier said than done. So yeah, in such cases, Unleashed, Garrett Wing's e-collar course of American Standard Dog Training and DIY Canine, is the best out there in my experience so far. I'm very familiar with the course. I went through it numerous times, and it's far from being just only slap an e-collar on, press buttons, course, it's very much insisting, and I wish everyone would listen to this and watch the course like 5 times, like I have, to get all the nuances, because it's so rich in information. But one of my favorite chapters in the course are the initial ones, the foundation chapters talking about the basics of dog training, the mechanics of marker training, the importance of timing, and this. I learned so much in just listening to that again and again, until I realized why didn't I had no idea that it even existed. And before writing this book was Will Atherton, I had no idea that operant conditioning and classical conditioning was even pretty much existing. I'm totally ashamed to say that now, because you would think, right, being a dog trainer, doing all this work, you'd be fluent in all that, but I totally wasn't. And I learned so much in the course of these assignments and projects, like the book writing projects, going through this course and writing a manual based on e-collar training, on that e-collar training course, actually, in a book form. I don't know if they published that meanwhile, but that was originally written by me in book form, to give a written manual of the same, and it just ingrained in me the I don't know, just the knowledge of how much nuance there is in dog training, and also how much care needs to be applied in e-collar training, or in any compulsion-based training, to avoid all the pitfalls that are manifold. And we have scientific consensus, and I unapologetically say that I stand with why do I need to even say that, I guess? Because there's so many people, oh my god, Zach George and his scientific consensus. And it's not about Zach George. There is scientific consensus, not only in the States, but in Europe as well. I mean, why is it such a red flag for many people to mention the American Society of Veterinary Behaviors and the related organizations, and the equivalents in Europe, where I live, where dog training is widely regulated? Shouldn't be. So yeah, say this scientific consensus states that the use of aversives is highly problematic, because there's a list of side effects ranging from aggression to anxiety to increased fear, to increased separation anxiety, and loss of trust to the owner, and sometimes quite permanent damage of the dog-human relationship. I believe if everyone extremely carefully listened to what Garrett Wing and Will Atherton have to say, these side effects could be avoided. I go as far as to say that. But the concern I see, and in my time with these businesses, especially with American Standard Dog Training, DIY Canine, I've just fallen out of sync with believing that we should be recommending e-collar training to just about everyone, because e-collars can also fail. Like if you don't get it right to put the e-collar prongs on the skin, if there's a few hairs in between of your dog, then there won't be a signal, and then your dog might be chasing livestock, and you can't stop them if you haven't done the training diligently enough before. And I believe the only way, it sounds maybe extreme, but I really believe your best shot, if you are circumstantially almost coerced to needing to e-collar train your dog to be able to exercise them for recall or for aversives, if you live in an area where there's predators, cane toads, crocodiles, alligators, and Florida, for instance, has it all. That's where Garrett Wing used to be located. So he devised and built that into the e-collar course. There's an aversive training that can save, and probably has saved more dogs' lives than we know. In other parts of the world, there's of the US even, and Canada and Alaska, there's bears, there's moose, there's elk, there's wolves, there's coyotes, there's, you name it, mountain lions, cougars. It's horrible how many dangers there can be for your dog, right? Snake bites can be quite deadly, right? Rattlesnakes. The positive reinforcement community allegedly has methods too to do rattlesnake aversive, not aversive, because they're force free allegedly, right? So not an aversive training, but like to rattlesnake avoidance training is a term, I think. But I don't know, I can't tell you how effective that is, so I can't at this point in my life say that in 100% of the cases you shouldn't be using an e-collar, for instance. I just can't say that. I think where I fell out of sync is just recommending that to each and every dog owner, and pushing e-collar training on each and every situation, or same with prong collar. I just no longer believe that that's a great idea, and not because Garrett Wing or Will Aslan doing anything wrong. They're obviously very experienced in what they're doing, but people innocently and ignorantly seeing this information, picking according to their prior conditioning, picking certain segments of that, and then literally in some cases doing more damage than good by using these aversive tools, and then running into situations where their big powerful dog turns on them. And I mean, in the course of my work coaching people, I was leading a team of 15 forum moderators and training coaches for Garrett Wing, DIY Canine, American Standard Dog Training. So I had to be very much aware that there is, you know, an extreme responsibility on my shoulders as a team leader to make sure neither me or my team give advice that leads people into difficult situations. But I seen, not only on the job but also outside in other forums that I was part of, to learn more and to be able to coach people better, that there is just this danger that people do misuse the information given by the trainers, even by the courses, and bring themselves and their dogs into unfortunate situations. And sometimes we coming too late as an outside person trying to help, because the person and the dog now have gone through certain experiences and accidents that are very hard to undo, if you will. So it became difficult for me, and me and Garrett had very good conversations about the topic. I was being also very transparent to, you know, both to my team and to management and to Garrett about what my concerns were, and they were very well heard. So I'm not at all saying anything bad about them. I don't have any reason to. In fact, we're still friends. Like myself, Garrett, being good terms. I'm on very good terms with my former teammates, several of our members. You know, I could have stayed on as a moderator and so forth. So just to say, it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm no longer with DIY Canine American Standards, all bad. It couldn't be further from the truth. All I'm saying is, in my experience on the job and outside of the job in similar forums, it's just a little bit like almost doing the public a disservice by presenting all these recommendations. Use a prong, use a micro prong for your tiny dog, use the e-collar to fix that and that, because people will not be able, and that's just the experience after a certain amount of years in the business, people will not be able to commit because they got so much other things going on in their lives, commit so much time to their dog and understanding them, training them, unpacking their behavior, but then also the ability to, the experience that's missing, it's lacking. You can't to watch YouTube videos and have that replace hands-on dogs experience. It's just not possible. And also the knowledge, like people like me, dog crazy people, dog training nerds, spend so much time, and these trainers even far more, spend so much time training dogs, learning about training, educating themselves, and, you know, learning by doing, that these average dog owners, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but they just don't have that knowledge base, they don't have the experience, and it's just sometimes leading to dangerous situations. So in my perspective, I could no longer give this kind of advice, because I just felt that the burden of responsibility was too much for me to do that, and it stressed me out, and My manager was, she was amazing. I learned so much from her, but she was also very intuitive in that she felt that from me. She didn't. She always was very understanding of it, but ultimately it was a mutual decision. This is no longer aligned because I wasn't happy in the job anymore. As yeah, and there's nothing to do with anything the business was doing. It's just a personal thing. Sometimes you just move into different directions in life in your personal philosophy and feel that you want to learn more in different ways and develop in different ways. And being now independently able to speak about dog training has been such a blessing for me. It's really beautiful, and I can now, again, I mean, still wholeheartedly recommend people watch DIY canine courses. I mean, it's extremely educative. Just be cautious to not copy paste what you see without diving in the material, repeatedly watching it, and also watching it without your kids running through the background, without you being distracted by 1,000 things. But this is deep stuff that Garrett Wing's teaching us, so really take your time, watch it again, because like a good book, you learn more the more you watch, and then you apply this to your own dog. But also be aware that parallel to that, you give your own dog, say for obedience training. Don't just pin them on a place board for hours and hours because you think, oh, now I can do that. I can pressure the dog so they maintain position. How great! How convenient! That could literally bite you in the backside at some point. Because if you don't give your dog outlets, which Garrett Wing personally does all the time with the dogs in his care, I mean, having worked for him, I would say I know that, I could say that. Same with Will Atherton, they have these big spaces, big fields, big yards where dogs and puppies, they run and play, and as an employee, of course, you see much more of that than the general public, but this is so important that you give your dog ample outlet for their breed-specific and species-specific needs, for their needs to run, explore, and sniff, and mark territory, and run free, and roam, and play with whatever. If they like other dogs, play with other dogs. If they don't. Play fetch, play tag, play frisbee, engage in dog sports, go jogging with your dog, whatever it is. But that exercise, the role of exercise, is widely misunderstood. In that, yes, it's fine. I just do this little walk, and then the dog can be in the crate for 8 hours. Oh my God, hell no! I never advocate leaving a dog in a crate for more than, I'd say, maximum 4 hours at a time, and then make sure someone gets there, lets the dog out, lets the dog run off its steam, and never. Why on earth would people want to suppress zoomies in the yard? For instance. So yeah, it's just it's just a lot been going on there that I feel it needs reform, needs people to understand a bit better how to meet the needs of their dog. So that's why I'm here now as an independent consultant in the dog world. I'm very much enjoying that, and I really hope I see you guys in this video's already been far too long. Hope I see you guys in the Facebook group, support group for dog owners is its name, and also follow me on Facebook. My profile is very open for everyone to follow. Alexandra Dittmann 31. Zen Canine Consulting page, Facebook page, and business page is attached. So anything you want to know, you can. Don't hesitate to message me if you want. You can also email me if you want. Direct message me on Facebook first. But if you want to book a session, we can find. We can send you Calendly links. You can book an appointment if you like, or you can just join the group, join for free, and let's enjoy a conversation. Okay, thanks so much all you guys for watching and for your patience listening to my ramblings. Wishing you all the best and see you soon. Bye.